Hello, Wellness Warrior. Um, Today, I want to talk about activity level, being out there, doing your life, and the different ways that we engage the world. Um, you know, Lazy is a word that gets thrown around for people who are overweight often. And I think it's unfair. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that this word lazy is thrown at us because people don't want to acknowledge the fact that food plays a huge role in why people are overweight. So it's easier to call us lazy. And all of this is coming up because I got this question from a viewer, and it was asking about whether or not sedentary keto, if you're on a keto diet, can you be on keto and be sedentary at the same time, basically? And what kind of diet would I need to do what kind of keto diet would I need to do? And I want to talk about this a little bit because I think I realized something really interesting in looking at this comment. First of all, sedentary is defined as being often seated and somewhat inactive. And what I found interesting about that is that if I think about myself, right? I grew up thinking that the only way to lose weight, like to truly lose weight and keep it off, was to exercise a lot, to work out a lot, and of course to eat healthy. We all have that story. But to exercise, that was what was drilled into me. My dad always had a gym in the basement. I joined the gym at a really young age. For me, anyways, I think it was young, in my 20s, which is like a time that you should be healthy, but yet I was going to the gym trying to be more healthy, which is all good stuff, right? Because we should work out. It's good for our body to work out. My life in reality was a lot about work. So if we consider the fact that my job, all of the jobs I've had, pretty much I'm sitting at a desk. And then, my previous job, when this picture was taken, I would sit with my clients, and then I would sit in my car between clients, and then I would get home and I would be exhausted from all that thinking, and I'd sit and relax and watch TV. So a lot of my time was spent sitting, which is basically the definition of sedentary, right? Now, at this point, I have my daughter. But even with my daughter, if I think about the reality of what it was like she played at the park, I'd watch her play. So I'm either standing or sitting, not really doing much. I take her to the jumping place at that age, right? Because she's about 7 there. She's jumping around and I'm watching her jump. Maybe once in a while I jump with her because she'd ask me to, but most of the time I'm watching her jump. And I mean, how often did I take her to a jumping place? Once a month, maybe? So, and then eventually at 7, she's old enough too to play with her friends and engage with other people. And so what's happening? She's having kids over and they're playing. And what am I doing? Maybe I'm watching TV. Maybe I'm on my computer. I might be cooking them something. Nothing strenuous, pretty quiet stuff. All things that don't necessarily qualify as exercise. So basically, I'm sitting most of my time. Now, I got to this picture, which is 1 year later, and I was surprised because I'm clearly thinner in this picture. But I really shouldn't be because, again, I'm pretty young here. I'm like, early 30s. And one thing that I will say is that at that period of time, I was able to just decide, I'm going to eat properly and I'm going to work out and I'm going to do a bit more. And so I would have moments where I could pull this off, right? So this was not necessarily a workout thing. This was a manage my food better thing. And that's important. I think, like you, I got fed up of being overweight and I just pushed myself really hard. And I mean, this is 2013. I don't specifically remember exactly what I did, but I do know that throughout my lifetime, I've done that a few times where I just get fed up and I would really decrease what I was eating. So, calories in, calories out. And I would suffer the hunger and I would lose the weight. And it would take a long time, by the way. I'm sure that took me probably the whole year to get there. And then, as is usually the case, the following year, the weight is back. And it's like, what the heck, right? So there's this yo-yo dieting thing that's happening. And like, I don't know in my life if I've ever actually maintained something that could be called an active lifestyle. What I would do is I would force myself to go to the gym for periods of time, or I'd force myself to ride my bike more, or I'd force myself, right? So there's a lot of forcing myself to do a bunch of stuff. But then it didn't last. The good eating, so the calorie restriction, the low fat didn't last. And so eventually I'm back to having too much on my plate and not enough activity. So let's talk about activity levels first, because I want to just go through sedentary. We all know what that is, right? You're not moving. You're sitting most of the time. You're not getting a lot of energy out. But there's 3 other levels that I was able to find, because I was like, what are the different kinds of activity levels how do we categorize these things? And what I found is that there's something called light activity, which is basically you're doing 4 hours of not vigorous activity per week. So that would be like I'm consciously making a decision to go for a walk. The walk has to be like faster than you would normally walk, but it's not vigorous. You're not running. It's a walk. And if you do 4 hours of non-vigorous activity per week, that's called light activity. If you do 3 hours of moderate physical activity, so now we're talking about running, biking, swimming, like I guess skiing would fall in there. So if you do 3 hours per week of moderate activity, that would be considered moderate. I fell into this category occasionally, but I'm going to tell you the problem that I have with that in a moment. And then we have vigorous, which is regularly hard training several times a week. So that's running, skiing, soccer. Usually they kind of say people who do this are either doing it specifically like for a sport, or they're specifically doing it to keep their health up. And it's basically every other day-ish, but several times a week that you're doing some kind of vigorous. So you're pushing your body hard, your blood is pumping, your heart is pumping. I can tell you that when I was skiing, my heart wasn't necessarily pumping like that. So like I was again, moderately, I was kind of leisurely skiing. So, I want to share with you this. I didn't put myself in moderate because that skiing that I did once a week, the truth is it was 12 weeks out of the year, right? We ski 12 weeks out of the year. So even if I managed to make it to every week, because we skied on the weekend, if nobody got sick and everything went well, and I was able to ski every weekend, that skiing that I did, it's 12 weeks. The truth of the matter is, spring, summer, and fall, I did not religiously, weekly do something that got my heart rate even moderately up, right? Like when I took my daughter to the park, I'm kind of watching her play. I wasn't running around. And I mean, but we did occasionally, we went to the tree climbing place. Yeah, that was a hard workout for me. We went once this summer. We went to the jumping place, maybe 2-3 times a year. The problem that I see when I look at these definitions is I realize that I didn't do enough to be moderately moving. So therefore, according to the standard idea of weight loss, if I'm not doing enough, that means that I'm not going to lose weight, right? And as we can see, my weight continues to rise. It's 2015, right? It's the summer, in the spring, in the fall. I'm not doing much. And even today, I am consistently not active today on a weekly basis. So my desire was to go climbing every single week. Life happens. Schedules, sickness. You can still hear that I'm sounding weird, right? So did I go climbing every single week since I started climbing? Not at all, right? I bought a 10-week pass, like a 10 session pass. I'm still on my first 10 session pass. Now, granted, the first time I went, I didn't use my pass. I didn't know if I liked it yet, but that was one time. I bought the pass the very next time. So basically, my climbing shoes have not climbed 10 times yet, because I bought my climbing shoes for the first time I went with my, like, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that this thing that I want to do every single week, I don't do every single week. Now, I like longboarding. And again, can I say, well, on the weeks that I'm not climbing, that I was longboarding? No, I can't even say that. So far, since the weather has allowed for longboarding, I think I've longboarded maybe, I'm going to give myself 4 times, maybe 5. Why am I saying all this to you? It's because I see that I'm not consistent. And if I were to talk about the amount of activity I do, and then if I was still looking like this, the idea would be, well, Violet, you're lazy. You're sedentary. You're just sitting still. You're not doing anything to make sure that you achieve the goal that you say you want to achieve. And that's a hard thing to hear, right? You're in 2016. I'm not sure. I couldn't find another picture of me in 2016. So I'm not sure at this time of the year. I look like I might have lost a little bit again. But like things like cleaning the snow, they count, right? Because cleaning snow is hard. Don't let anybody tell you it's not hard. Just pushing snow around, throwing snow around. I've got stairs. It's a lot of work. But the problem with cleaning snow is that, again, I live somewhere where, yes, it snows. And when it snows, it's a lot of snow. But it doesn't snow every week. Sometimes I can go weeks without having to clean snow. So it snows. And when it snows, it's a difficult chore for me. But then I've even gotten away from that because I used to clean my stairs, but now I've hired someone. And so my driveway gets cleaned by a company. The stairs gets cleaned by somebody else. And so once again, am I lazy? Is that why I'm doing? No, but it's hard work and I don't have time. But theoretically I should be skiing. So did I ski? Well, I probably did in 2015 or 2016 when that picture is. But these are the things that get in our way. And these are the things that stop us from accomplishing the goals that we say that we want to accomplish, right? Because as you can see here, look at my face. So I just go forward 1 year, every winter, 1 year, and my face looks different every time, right? And at this point, this is 2017, Wellness Warrior. At this point, I was actually at my heaviest weight ever, 80 plus pounds overweight in this picture. It's crazy to me. I'm looking at myself, happy as heck. Look at my smile, but overweight, right? And like the person who sent in the question, my knees were sore, but my hip was the biggest problem. My hip. I had a bad back. I had neck pain, elbow pain. I was in a lot of joint pain. I was seeing a chiropractor weekly. I was informed that I needed to wait if I wanted to solve my hip issue because my hip wasn't bad enough. So if I wanted to solve my hip issue, probably would be a surgery. But they could give me some medication, right, to take the pain down. So this is a period of time in my life where not moving, I think, probably contributed some of this because I did realize later on as I tried to solve this problem that the more I walked around, And I started going for super long walks. The more I walked around, the better my hip felt. So sedentary does something else besides rising our weight, Wellness Warrior. It allows our body to deteriorate. And that's horrible. It's horrible. Please don't. I think we need to move, but not for the weight reason. I feel like we don't understand how much our bodies are meant to move. When we sit a lot or lay a lot, I know there's a lot of people that, for example, if you happen to be unlucky enough to have had a problem that caused you to be in a wheelchair or to be bedridden, we get sores if we don't move, right? Our body is meant to move. And I'm making this video today as much for you and for the person who asked the question as I am for myself, because I want to move more and we're going to talk about keto in a minute and like how that's going to play. But I want to move more because I understood when I got to this stage of the game, and it only clicked for me at this stage when I started to push myself to walk because I thought it was going to help me to lose weight. It didn't, by the way. But I thought if I could walk and move more and just get myself, maybe I could get to a run stage and that would help. I did not lose any weight by moving more. I actually didn't even get to ski that winter. I was in so much pain. No skiing for me. It was horrible. And it was something I blamed myself for, right? How did I let myself get to this state? So I learned that walking wasn't the answer. However, what I learned was that the food was the thing that was going to help me. So you're asking, what kind of keto should I do? Because I'm sedentary and I've got all these physical ailments, and you find yourself sad and depressed about it. And I want to point something out to you. It's like that question, what kind of keto should I do? I want to just pause here for a second. Keto is keto. Keto is about getting into a ketogenic state. So keto is keto, right? So when you ask that question, there's a little bit of confusion. I'm going to go over this a bit later. I just want to pause here for 5 seconds and say there's a little bit of confusion because we think that there's something specific that I'm going to tell you, eat these things, and then that's the kind of keto you need because you're sedentary. But in fact, what we need to do is eat properly. So I started to do keto April 20th, 2018. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was completely confused. I read some stuff and it said you have to be in a ketogenic state. You have to do keto. You have to have 20 grams of carbs or less. I had no idea what any of that meant. And so what did I do? I looked at my diet and I found the foods that in my diet were high in sugar, because I didn't even know that I was eating sugar when I was trying to be good. When I lost the weight previously and I was being good, I was actually still eating a lot of sugar and I didn't know that. I, of course, was taking fat down low, but the sugar content was there. So I stopped eating things like rice, and potatoes, and pasta because I came to understand that those things are high in sugar. I stopped eating things. Well, that's not true. So this is again where I'm gonna say this in reverse. I started eating broccoli, cauliflower, leafy vegetables like kale and Swiss chard and collard greens, and any other low sugar vegetable that I could find. I started eating those things. I tried every low sugar vegetable that I could try because I wanted to find food that I could eat on a regular basis that was going to help me to eat less than 20 grams of carbs every single day. So in my history, before I started doing keto, so this was the first time, April 20th was the first time that I tried keto in 2018. But before that, every other diet I'd ever done was bring the fat down. So lean cuts of meat, bring the vegetables up, any kind of vegetable, introduce fruit, because I hate fruit. This is me being very honest with you. I hate fruit. I, on a regular standard Canadian diet, eat 0 fruit. a standard Canadian diet, I ate almost no vegetables, potatoes and carrots. Those were the vegetables I ate. And if anybody knows about keto, you know that potatoes and carrots are not the vegetable that's going to give you the least amount of sugar. So I'm starting off there, right? When I decided to do a keto diet and I introduced all those vegetables, can I just point out that that was the first time in my adult life where I was eating healthy vegetables daily, right? Because French fries are not a healthy vegetable. So that was amazing to me because when I switched from standard diet to keto diet, so many people came running in saying, Violet, that's not healthy. Violet, you're going to get sick. Violet, you're going to kill yourself. How can eating all these normal fat meats, so like meat that's not lean, how could that possibly be healthy? You're going to hurt you. You know, as soon as I learned that keto works because when you eat low glycemic vegetables, you release less insulin, I was more committed to this idea because insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store fat. So insulin tells your body to store fat because sugar in large amounts is toxic in the body. I was not aware of that. I was not aware that the rice, potatoes, and pasta that I was eating as part of my everyday meals was so toxic that it was actually causing a health problem for my body. And it was not about my activity level. It was about the food I'm eating. I have a quick poll I want to give you guys. What activity level would you actually say that you are? While we're going through this, I'm kind of curious to know. But by learning that I was eating toxic amount of sugar and that my body was putting that sugar into fat storage to keep me alive, so to protect me, when I learned that, I became very committed to eating less sugar daily. Because you ever heard that saying, the dose makes the poison? Well, that's what sugar is. The dose determines if it's toxic or not. So what I figured out was that if I let myself eat less sugar, then my body actually was able to manage the sugar that I was eating. And then because my body was now able to manage the sugar that I was eating, I was losing weight. So this is me in August. So April, I started keto, April 20th. This is me 4 months later. And I'm much thinner there. Now, I'm not at my goal weight, my lowest weight, but I'm much thinner there. And I think the thing that I want to point out to everybody is my activity level didn't change. This is not from working out. I actually, interestingly, because I was going on a lot of walks before I figured out that what I needed to do was fix my food. But then as I started to fix my food and my hip started to feel so much better, because that was one of the first things that happened, is that my hip felt better before I lost any significant amount of weight. 3 months in, Pat asked me how my hip was doing, and I had forgotten that was why I started eating better, was to solve a hip issue. So I want us all to think about the fact that this diet, this keto diet that I was doing, where I didn't even know what the heck I was doing, I just started pulling out all the carby stuff, was working because there's only one type of keto diet, right? When you get your body low enough that you get into a ketogenic state, then your body is actually able to use the fat that you're eating as energy, since you're not eating a lot of sugar anymore. So that is not the biggest energy source that you have. Now, 20 grams of carbs is still more than enough sugar to replenish your muscles, which do use some sugar. And it's enough to give any parts of your body that need sugar. But I'm going to go a step further and share a little secret with you that I learned. I'm trying to remember which doctor said this when I learned this tidbit of information. Oh gosh, I'm not remembering right now, but I know I've said it before in previous videos. When you are healthy, your body makes all the sugar that you need. And it doesn't take long for you to get to that healthy place, right? If you stop eating, so overeating sugar, within days, your body resumes producing all the sugar that you need. Why? Because you've stopped poisoning yourself. So when I say healthy, I mean when you're not poisoning yourself with sugar, then you don't need to eat as much sugar because your body resumes running on fat. And that was something that, again, when I learned that a ketogenic state is when your body is able to produce ketones, which is a type of fat, and manage the amount of sugar you eat easily and use fat as its main source of energy. When I learned that, again, it made me understand why I was struggling so much. A small amount of rice puts you over the amount of sugar you can have for the day. And I was not even eating a small amount of rice. Like the amount of rice that would have been on my plate was clearly 4 servings. The amount of potatoes, the amount of carrots, the amount of pasta, that I was eating when I was eating these things, 4 to 5 servings. Of course, because the average adult, when you go to, let's just give you an example that you could resonate with. If you go to an Italian restaurant and order a plate of spaghetti with meat sauce, that's like 4 servings of pasta. And how did I know? Because I went home, I looked in my cupboard, and I checked, and I realized that when you actually look at the packages and see the serving sizes that they're telling that you should, Wellness Warrior, we're eating too much. And we don't even realize, because how many of us actually look at those serving sizes as a determining factor for the amount that we're putting on our plate? I know that I was not. I was putting on my plate how much I wanted to eat because I was hungry. I was hungry because I was overeating my sugar, and my body was constantly putting away what I was eating. Oh my goodness, the roller coaster that I was under. That I was on, I should say. I pretty much was under it. It was killing me. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. Now, if you're going to be in a ketogenic state, conventional speak says that you need to be under 20 grams of carbs daily. And that's great. But I think the other thing that I learned in doing this process was that it's not the truth for everybody. So, yes, some people will need to be under 20 grams of carbs, but others of us will need to be under more than that, right? So some of us need to be, like myself, under 18. So this is an image of me at my lowest weight. And what you're going to see is that I had figured out by this point my way of eating, and I was pretty comfortable, confident in what I was doing. I want to say something. This is October. So I started keto April. And by October, I was at my lowest weight. Now, I don't end up staying there because I didn't like looking that thin. So as you can see, looking at me today, I don't look like that. This is purposeful. But actually, as you can see, Pat is also quite thin in this picture because he was also doing keto for a good period of time with me. And we both made such great gains in our health by eating properly. And again, neither of us was killing ourselves in the gym. But although Pat was going to the gym, so I will give him credit for that. He was going to the gym. But I think the thing that I want you to understand is that some people, like me, can only do 18 grams of carbs in a day. And otherwise, I kind of start to creep back up in my inflammation. That's my big sign. I don't wait for weight gain to tell me my problems. I can tell it in my joints. If I'm not feeling good in my joints, it's because something's wrong. And so I really realized really quickly that 18 was my number. But some people can't even do 12 or 5. Some people have to be 0. So carnivore numbers. They can't manage carbohydrates. They have so much metabolic damage that they cannot manage carbohydrates. And what does that mean? See, a lot of people say that means you have to do a different kind of keto. I'm trying to help us all to understand. It's not a different kind of keto. It's about what insulin does in the body and how much metabolic damage you've created. So how much metabolic damage I created determined what insulin was doing in my body. And it made me realize that I was so insulin resistant that even 18 grams of carbs started to push my body and I was reacting. Some people are so insulin resistant that 5 grams of carbs will push their body and they start reacting. And for some people, yes, it's reality that they are at 0. So if they eat even the smallest amount of carbohydrate, their body starts reacting. What does that mean? See, I think it's confusing when we try to define and redefine and at the end of the day, carnivore is a subset of the keto diet. Keto is a subset of a low carb diet. And I feel like we already have some distinctions, but I see people trying to put more and more and more and more distinctions on what kind of keto, if lion diet and ketovore and all these other terms coming up. And I find it makes it confusing for people. And I don't want this to be confusing for you. I want it to be simple. And what's simple is I today still say I do keto, even though 14 out of 14 days, maybe I have 2 or 3 where I eat some carb. But I still say I'm keto because yesterday I had lettuce with my meat and some avocado, lettuce and avocado. So I'm not carnivore. But if I were doing like Dr. Baker and I was just eating always meat, then I would say I was carnivore. If I was never touching veg ever again, fine, carnivore. Do I think it matters? Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Because the only reason that I eat the way that I eat is because I figured out how much carb I can manage. And I figured out that I feel better when I have less carb in my life. So by me allowing the fact that I love meat, first of all, tastes delicious, why wouldn't I eat it? By me allowing the fact that I don't need that sugar entertainment on my plate to have a good meal, then what I'm doing is I'm letting myself eat the thing that's healthiest for me because it's healthiest for me and I feel great and I like my meals. I'm satisfied with the meals that I'm eating. I'm also more than satiated by the meals that I eat, right? I'm not hungry minutes later, hours later. I'm fine. And so I want us all to think about the things that we're putting on our plate because, yes, it's handy to be able to say, you know, I'm low carb versus keto versus carnivore, right? These terms help us to kind of let other people know when they're cooking, if they're going to be cooking for us, where we fall. But at the same time, if I'm doing 15 grams versus 5 grams versus 0, it's less about labeling myself and more about understanding what's the healthiest place for me. When I started to live my life at 10 grams of carbs or less, which was about, I'd say 3 years ago, I did that because I noticed that when I hit that 18, I didn't feel good. And I just wanted to eliminate the possibility that I hit the 18, right? Today, that I'm barely eating any carb, that came about because I'm not desiring carb because I love the food I eat. I love the meats I make. And I don't feel like I'm missing anything, right? And I know for sure that when I have carb on my plate, if I have too much of it, I don't feel well, right? So it's just, we do what helps us to maintain what's healthy for us. And I like to do the easy things, right? But you'll notice that all of what I'm talking about right now has nothing to do with me running around pushing heavy things in the gym, right? I haven't resumed the gym. And it's like how you do keto and what you specifically eat on keto isn't the point as much as being consistent in what you're eating, keeping you in that ketogenic state. And in order to do that, I need to understand that insulin regulation is really the big goal of a keto lifestyle. I'll add to this that I am 1 meal a day, right? Again, why am I 1 meal a day? It's easy for me. I work a lot, right? It's part of the reason that I'm not playing as much as I'd like to play, because trust me, if I could go climbing every day, I would, because it's so much fun. But I don't have the time to go climbing every day. I work, right? And I also like making these videos, so I have to do some research and I'm learning things. But all of that involves sitting at a computer, right? So when your insulin is regulated, you're not overloading your body with sugar. So pasta, rice, potatoes, and other high fruit is another huge place where we get a lot of sugar. When you're not overloading your body with sugar, drinking milk, another place where we get a lot of ice cream, junk food, of course, is places where we get a lot of sugar. When I'm actually paying attention, your health improves because your body can actually, first of all, build itself because you're not constantly eating. That 1 meal a day that I do allows my body to build me properly because it has time where it's not processing food every day, so it can do some little repairs. And then I help myself by once in a while. I did one just recently doing a 5-ish day fast. So these things are things that help me to stay healthy. And then, of course, my body can use the fat on board for fuel. Yes, I still have fat on board. I do still step on the scale once in a while just to make sure that my weight is where I think it is. I mean, I can look at myself and I see that I look okay, but don't forget, Wellness Warrior, you're used to looking at yourself in the mirror every day. You could be gaining weight and not even notice it because you're used to looking at yourself in the mirror every day. And if you're putting on a 1/10 of a pound every week, you're not going to notice that until, in my case, I didn't notice the weight on me until I was much more than 30, 40 pounds overweight, just because I'm used to looking at myself every day, right? You brush your teeth, you do your hair, you check your outfit. You're constantly looking at yourself. It's normal that you wouldn't notice that your weight was rising immediately. It takes time for you to see that. So eating keto allows our body to get back into its natural state where it's balanced, where it's using your energy appropriately, where it's creating sugar if it needs to, because it can, and you just feel amazing. And so, did I become more active since losing weight? No. I'm still about once a week, if I'm lucky. Like I just told you, I'm not always able to do it, but I at least try once a week, and not because I want to stay thin, by the way. I try to go and do something once a week because I like doing stuff. I like climbing. I like going to the Ab, which is more climbing. Actually, funny enough, I went there next. I like longboarding. I like riding my trike. I like riding my scooter, push scooter. Although I am trying to make an electric one, but it's not built yet, but I like riding things. I like building things. That's another thing, that I have some projects that are sitting in my garage that I have not touched because I'm so busy, right? I have my guitar that I'm supposed to learn how to play that I haven't touched in how many years because I'm so busy. The truth of the matter, and the guitars, they're not light. So, just holding, it's not an acoustic guitar, it's electric. So like even just holding that thing is pretty heavy. So like there are things that I could be doing that would be expending more energy that I don't do. Right? So I think that this idea that I'm lazy, that's why I was overweight, it's a fallacy, because I'm about as active today as I was back then, but somehow I'm at the right weight today. So what is that telling us? Right? My weight wasn't being caused by my sedentary lifestyle, because my weight isn't being caused today by my sedentary life. I'm still living a relative. I mean, I could put myself in lightly active maybe, but honestly, seriously, I struggle even to say that I'm moderately active. I don't think I am. It's not reality, because I don't do moderate for every single week, right? 3 hours every single week. I don't. So I'm going to say I'm like just under moderate. Like maybe I'm striving to be moderate, and I hope I achieve it, because I would like to be more active. In this picture, you see, I got a new snowboard, for Christmas, and that was in 2020. And believe it or not, did I get to ride that dang thing? I think the first time I rode it was this past winter in 2022. It was the first time I rode it, actually. I remember I did, because I put my bindings on it finally this past winter. So it's just to let you know that means that even the winter this year, I didn't do anything except for one time, because I went once. Even the winter before that, because that was 2020. So 2021 and 2022, I did nothing. It's crazy to me when I have to actually sit here and realize I am sedentary. It like makes me like uncomfortable to think about it that way, but I am, right? But yet it's not what's managing my weight, right? Because I'm still at the proper weight. And let me just point this out to you, Wellness Warriors. Every single person listening to this, whether you're in the future listening to the replay or not, I am not hungry during my day. I'm not starving myself like I did back in my history to lose weight and feeling hungry and annoyed and like can't wait for it to be over. Nope. I'm not hungry during my day. All right? I have one coffee and one meal every day, and I am totally fine. Right? But I still want to be more active, because it's fun, and I hate that my life gets in the way. I'm still working full time. I make videos, which takes up more time, but I loved helping you guys, so I make the videos. So like this stuff, even researching this took me a little bit of time, right? Like, what did I want to talk to you guys about, and what pictures? I had to find the pictures to show you, because I wanted you to see that I'm not just pretending or making this up. Like, you see the progression. And yo-yo dieting isn't healthy, but yet clearly I was yo-yo dieting. Now I'm not, right? I want to be active. And I want our family to be active. And when we do get active, like, we go for it, right? Like yesterday, we went for a skate yesterday, and that was cool. And so this was a rare weekend where I did two things, right? Because I went climbing for the first time. I don't know how many weeks, on Saturday, and then I was able to go for a skate yesterday. So two things in one weekend, right? But is it consistently that? And that's what I'm going to work on. So I'm saying it out loud. That's what I'm going to work on. I want to be more consistent in moving, not because of weight. Again, this is not what's making this happen, right? And I want you all to see that. I'm saying this now because I still do want to be healthier and get more muscle, because all the research shows women with more muscle live longer. Since I'm aiming at 110-ish, I need more muscle on me, obviously. So this is a goal that I'm putting in front of myself, that I want to be moving more. And if I invest in ways to be more active, but then I don't end up doing them because other things come up, then that's frustrating. So I want to say this to you, to put it out into the universe and make it happen. And this picture that we're looking at here, Pat and I, we were on vacation with the kids. The kids took the picture of us. And we're at a restaurant. And I put this picture up especially because I wanted to point out that even on vacation, we eat keto. So one thing that I will say, and I said it earlier in this video, I'm going to say it again. I'm not consistent with my workouts. I'm consistent with eating right. I make sure that I eat the right foods because that's the thing I can control that makes sure that I stay in my ketogenic state. That's the thing that I can control that makes sure that I'm not harming my body because I know when I let myself eat more carb, it's harming my body. Well, we have to consider that just because you don't gain weight immediately, just because you don't become diabetic immediately, doesn't mean that your insulin resistance isn't being sparked. Because if we're overweight, we have insulin resistance. That's what that means. And just because you don't feel the negative physical repercussions after the fact immediately does not mean that it's not causing damage. It is, right? Something as simple as like mayonnaise. I don't eat mayonnaise that has made with canola oil, even if, it's one time. No, canola oil, as I remember Dr. Barry said, you can give away the sugary food. He said, give it away. Some food is better than no food. But he said, throw away all processed oils. He said, do not even give them away. You're poisoning people. Wellness warrior, I want you to think about that statement because it's helping you to understand really what we should be doing, right? Eat on plan. Your food determines 80% of what your weight's going to be. 80%. That means that working out, sleeping enough, cold plunges, and all the other thing that people tell you to do to lose weight combined is 20%, right? We kill ourselves in the gym before we understand this and barely lose 5-10 pounds. And then without working out, I lost more than 70. Like, can we just pause and think about that? More than 70. And all of that coming from the fact that the food is good quality. And if the good quality food is the most important thing, and good quality means low in sugar, good quality means, good quality meats are important, but low sugar is more important. So like we're always trying to make that balance, right? Buy the meat that you can afford. Not every piece of meat that I eat is pasture raised, pasture finished, for sure. At the same time, I'm like crazy about making sure that I'm not having canola oil, vegetable oil, right? So it's the quality of the food that I choose. I choose the best quality that I can. I choose the lowest sugar that I can. And most days in the last year, I eat almost no veg. But, I was at 10 grams or less for like 2 years before that. And all of this towards making sure that I don't have cravings, that I'm not constantly chasing, that I stay in my ketogenic state, that my body isn't storing fat unnecessarily, that I can easily fast when I want to. And that means that if I go out and I happen to end up somewhere where there's nothing on the menu that I can actually eat, I could eat nothing and I'd be fine. So it makes my life easier by consistently paying attention to what I eat and making sure that what I eat is the healthy thing. So keto for sedentary people is the same keto for old people, is the same keto for young people, is the same keto for women, is the same keto for men, is the same, like keto is just keto. And if you eat the amount of carb that allows your body as an individual to be in a ketogenic state, that's when you're going to know what your keto diet is going to look like. Also, what veg do you enjoy is not going to be the same as the veg that I enjoy. That's what's going to help you to stay in a ketogenic state. Because if I were to try to eat your veg, for example, you might be okay with eating tomatoes. I am not. Those are nightshades. They make me feel ill. You might be okay with eating eggplant and all the other kind of nightshades. I can't eat them, right? Which means something as simple as just having some pepper in the food makes it something that's dangerous for me because those are nightshades. So the only way to know what your keto number is going to be is to start eating healthy and see when your weight starts to come down, because that's a good sign that you're in a ketogenic state. When your energy increases, another great sign that you're in a ketogenic. Can you imagine how frustrating it is having all this energy and not having the time to go do my activities? Frustrating. When you feel less hungry, and that's even outside of your eating window. So like my eating window is about an hour in the evening, right? So somewhere in there, like my meal might take me, depending on what kind of meal it is, half an hour to an hour to eat. And the thing is that outside of that eating window, so let's say I was eating for half an hour, outside of that eating window, if I'm not hungry for most of that time, and if I drink if I'm drinking tea or whatever, coffee, whatever it is, like if I'm able to make my 24 hours and I'm not uncomfortable, then that's a great sign that I'm still in my ketogenic state, right? Increase mental clarity, that ability to think clearly and to problem solve and to interact well with others, right? And have good conversations. Another sign that you're in a healthy ketogenic state. So part of the reason that that's become one of the things we look at is because dementia and all those brain health issues are now being seen as type 3 diabetes, right? So we know that too much sugar impacts your brain and your ability to think. Decreased inflammation and less pain. If your inflammation and body aches go away, another good sign that you're in a ketogenic state. Stable blood sugar. So if you are someone who's checking your blood sugar and so you're not taking medication, but your blood sugar is stable and in the right zone, that's another sign that you're in a ketogenic state. If you're taking medication, that doesn't count. And if you're taking medication, you really should be talking to a doctor before starting keto. Keto is a very powerful change that you're making in your life, and it should not be taken lightly. So if you have any intention of eating keto and you're taking any kind of medication for health, then you should be talking to your doctor. And of course, stable insulin levels. Again, that's something you'd have to check with blood. Now, you can test for ketones. A lot of people like testing for ketones, but you need to keep in mind that long term, you will stop showing ketones in your breath and in your urine if you do keto consistently, because your body gets better at using those ketones, and so therefore you stop showing them, you stop wasting them, right? Your body takes what it needs, it makes what it needs, it's very efficient, your brain is using it, and so you're just more efficient and you lose less to urine and breath. So then you would only be able to test by blood. And the other piece of the puzzle is that sometimes people who test by blood even notice that their numbers go down there. What I understand from the doctors is that when you are in a good ketogenic state and you're stable for a long period of time, the number so that ketone number, like how much, I think 0.5 to 2 is the range that they send. People try to be higher, but most of the doctors are saying you don't have to be higher. You just need to be, it's your 0.5. And some doctors even say 0.2 is enough, because it's just the fact that your body's in ketosis at all that matters. Is not how much ketones is showing in your blood that matters, because again, how efficiently your body's using them changes how much is showing in your blood too, apparently. So obviously you guys can tell from the last picture and from this that I kept off the weight that I lost. But did you know that I lost that 70 pounds in just 5 months of doing keto? Yeah. So you can check out that video. It's in the description if you want to see how I did that. And I will link it after this video goes, after the live is over. I'm going to try going live Mondays and Fridays. So I'm hoping that we can have more conversations. And I really want to figure out the best way to help you guys achieve your goals. I'm also maybe going to try to have a group meeting on the Fridays where we can really talk in like a Zoom call. So that's on my agenda. So let me know what time of day you would like to have that meeting. I'm in the Eastern time zone. Since the live will still probably be in the morning, what time in the afternoon/evening would work best for people? I'm trying to look for times. I was thinking maybe like 2 and 5 Eastern time. But let me know what you think. Like which one of those times would work better? We can meet in person, which I'm really looking forward to. I'll talk to you guys next Monday at 11:20 with a new topic. Wellness Warriors, I love talking to you, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week. Bye.